clinical, all that stuff, and just your a brief synopsis of how you got to this point, which I know there's a lot to it, but go ahead.
Make it as brief as possible. I went to Howard University undergrad, majored in business management, and then went to Harvard Law School. At Harvard, they have a clinical in which we were able to do transactional work, which is very rare. Most clinicals are litigation based. And working at the clinical, I was able to work with clients in entertainment, real estate, and business, small business. And I developed a passion for that group of clients. So once I finished, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And, you have to pay the bills. So it's balancing, your passion with what are you going to do to actually support yourself. And I was blessed enough to get a clerkship that gave me like a year of being able to have guaranteed funds, but figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I decided to follow my passion and not let money guide me. And I, saved while I was there, moved to Atlanta, and decided I was going to hit up all the smaller entrepreneurs who were attorneys practicing in the field to see if anybody would hire me. I was blessed enough to get the opportunity to meet pretty much all of the attorneys, and Jonathan Leonard decided that he had a spot, but he had just recently hired someone else. And if it worked with that person, he had offered them the job. If it didn't, then I would get the job. It worked with that person, and I was like, okay, what am I gonna do now? But the best thing about that opportunity was I noticed that everything he was doing for his clients was exactly what I did at the clinical. It was just a higher level. And, Usher, T.I., all these people aren't going to hire me right out the gate anyway. So it's not like, I'm going to be doing the complexity of the deals he was doing at that point in my career. But I felt much more comfortable representing clients. I also am blessed with a family who told the world what I was doing. So I had clients before I even passed the bar off of family referrals. So don't be afraid to let your family know what it is that you want to do and what passion. You never know what connections they have or who they're going to send your way. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just start off on my own. I was blessed that the attorneys that I had met, including Jonathan, were willing to mentor me along the process. So if anything came across my desk that I just felt like I needed somebody else to review or to ask a question, I felt very comfortable being able to do that. And I've been an entrepreneur ever since then, and really found a passion for entrepreneurship that's just as strong as my passion was for law. So that's how I got here. My mix of clients is mostly, at this point, probably mostly music and film related. It's always been very heavily in the music industry, but I represent clients every facet of entertainment, authors, models, every single way that a person can entertain someone else. I've had a client that does it. So, and I like that. I like having kind of an overview of the industry. And recently I started a company with a partner who started off as an artist and then transitioned to the executive side of the entertainment business, mostly music. And we formed a company where we're assisting entertainment projects with getting funding. And that's kind of where I've developed my career up until this point. I always make sure that I get paid. Whatever I work out, whatever's, I've learned that I'd rather get the money up front, and if the client doesn't have it, to, just not represent the person, than to do the work and then be chasing somebody down. You, of course, have those options much more later on in your career than you do at the beginning, but these are important things to consider when you're actually making a living off of doing entertainment law. And I noticed that even in situations where the client could pay my fee, I didn't feel comfortable with them being able to pay for all the things that need to be done to make their project go forward. So I felt like the best way for me to assist people at this point was to help them come up with a complete budget, a complete plan, get that funded, and then, work it from that angle. And so that's what my passion is of recent, but it's all related. And the foundation is music.
Awesome. So there's so much that you said that I definitely want to hit on, but one thing that I just want to go ahead and throw out there is, your ability and my ability as entrepreneurs to be creative. In the space, I'm a very artsy person. Seems to be a very creative person. What do you find the most fulfilling about your ability to kind of expand beyond the law? When you say that you're helping people to set up budgets and things, I mean, that's beyond what lawyers do, but just tell us a little bit about how you decide that you're going to be a lawyer, and then, how do you start branching out to these other areas and why?
You let your passion and the clients kind of guide you. The type of clients you get, the type of work that you feel fulfilled to do, as well as the skill sets you have. So things that you're just naturally good at can lend themselves. Like some of you will probably do better as mediators, and people don't think of like different things like that, where you have a specialty in entertainment and you're very familiar with the industry, but you're more set up to kind of help people come to a resolution. Other people more litigation. Somebody else just being a deal maker. There are attorneys that kind of have a reputation for not doing great contracts, but they're well known in the industry for putting together major deals. So everybody kind of has their own specialty, and you kind of develop that as you start representing people and start figuring out what you like to do and what you have skills in doing.
I really want to highlight that. I actually had the opportunity to visit with some students at Emory Law yesterday. And I feel like I kept saying this over and over again. I'm like, I want to just start, building a platform for that. It's like we go to law school, and, when we're in law school, it's lawyer. You're here because you're going to be a lawyer. But I always challenge students to think outside of that. Yes, we'll have legal skills, but, what's going to make you a dynamic lawyer, no matter which industry you go in, are your natural gifts and talents and skills before you even got to law school. So for me, I can talk all day long. That's kind of, my thing. I believe I relate, to people very well. I mean, those are some things that I incorporate into my brand, my skill set. And, people don't hire me just because I'm a lawyer. They hire me because of my natural gifts, talents, and whatnot that I bring to my capacity as a lawyer. And I think that's important. So if you see us and you're like, well, they do this and they do that, I can't necessarily relate to that, there's space for everybody, whatever industry you want to go in, and you build a platform, for those gifts and those talents, and you happen to be a lawyer. When you graduate from law school, okay, you're a lawyer. There are lots of lawyers out there, but what makes you? Pull that to the forefront and build a platform, for that. What would you say, as far as you're building your brand, as an entertainment lawyer, what are some avenues that you use really to develop that out and to build a client base?
Well, like I said, I actually was just very blessed that my family.
Can we talk about family for a second?
They started me. I mean, just with telling everybody, and people who doesn't need a lawyer in the entertainment space?
I told my mother to stop telling people. I was like, Mom, every gathering,
yeah.
It's like, okay, let's not tell people that I'm a music lawyer. Like, let's stop. I do something. Right? I do like trust in the states or something. Because in my family, everybody's got music aspirations,
yeah.
And so on my end, it's like, oh well, no, Evita stopped doing that a while ago. But to your point, don't be afraid to tell people, what you're looking to do, and talk to everyone about it. Those who are purposed to receive that and understand it will support you. Those who don't get it, just don't get it. And that's okay. And that was difficult for me to grasp when I first started practicing, because I had big dreams and, wide eyes and a bushy tail, and this is what I want to do. And I heard, no, it is impossible, go do something else. I heard it so much that I kind of went into my space and built from there. And then, when I got groups. I came out and was like, hi, I'm here. And people can understand it. But don't be afraid to tell people what you want. Don't be afraid to tell people, who you are and what you're looking to do, because people will hear that. And somebody or somebodies will actually take a chance on you. And that's how you build. My third year in law school, I interned at a record label my last semester. And I was at the record label. They didn't really know why I was there. They were trying to figure out, like, you're a law student, we kind of need lunch. We need you to pick up our phones. And I was like, that's fine, I'll do that. But, let me see the contracts that you have. And they would give them to me, and I'd look at them, and I really didn't understand what they were. It's just the fact that I had it in my hand. And it was a real piece of information in the real world. But at the record label, there were people there who were just kind of hanging out. There's lots of people that just kind of hang out in this space. But within those people who were just kind of hanging out, there were some inspiring, artists and producers. And I'd say, hey, I'm in law school. And you begin to build a relationship with them. And then, maybe somebody has a management agreement. And I was in my entertainment law class at the time, and we were going over management agreements. I was like, I can look at it for you. But you start with people like that. And then once I graduated, I built relationships with those people. I ended up doing a lot of legal work for the people who worked at the record label. So it's just, you tell people what you want to do. It's just planting seeds along the way. And like I said, those who are purposed to support it and understand it, they will. I call them, angels. And everybody else, you don't internalize it. Because what we're doing, at least how we went about it, it's difficult for a lot of people to perceive it and say, oh, yeah, go for it. It's risky. It's risky, but I think the space in and of itself is just kind of a risky space. There really isn't anything that's guaranteed. There aren't a lot of definite blueprints, especially in the way that the space is changing. So as an entrepreneur in the entertainment space, what would you tell the students here about some sort of trends or things that they can be studying now, even though they're not lawyers? What are some things that they can study now? What should they be looking for at that will serve them when they become practitioners?
Anything involving technology. That's where it's going now, as far as how entertainment in general is delivered, especially music. So the more familiar you are with the new technology, the easier it will be for you to assist clients. And to kind of incorporate the tried and traditional legal contracts with that, the new way that the content is being delivered.
Absolutely. And the technology space in and of itself is so broad, because we have the technology it's older technology, the current, kind of where things are going. And it affects, of course, how content is being distributed, how it's being consumed, how it's being created. And as lawyers, these are things that we have to consider as we're doing the deals, to make sure that we're capturing all of that. So our topic today is, what's the role of a lawyer, music lawyer, when it comes to contracts, intellectual property, and a music brand? So just so that everybody has an understanding, I am a transactional attorney. I don't do any litigation. I tend to believe that, when things have to be litigated, we're at a point of conflict. I don't really do conflict, even though I'm a lawyer. I can't explain that really. But, on the transactional end, I am more involved in creativity, which is kind of where I love to be. So, I do contracts, I'm a deal maker, deal closer, all of those things, no litigation. But if I have clients that need, some sort of litigation counsel, I'll go out and I'll hire litigation counsel and oversee that whole process. So, what's the role of a music lawyer when it comes to contracts?
So speaking only on the transactional side, it's really to advise the client of what the contract holds. And I'll say this, it depends on what type of client you have. So for most of my career, I've represented the business owner. So they either had a label, production company, management company. So we're coming from the position of, I'm trying to understand what the parameters for how they want to sign this particular person, and putting together an agreement that represents that to be sent for that person to review. in the situation where I have a client that receives a contract, either it's, I'm usually, like I said, the middleman. So either if I'm representing an artist who's getting it from a label, or that middle company that's getting a deal from a major, I'm in the position of explaining to them what's in the contract and letting them know, kind of advising them of what industry standards are, in addition to kind of what leverage they have. So there are some things that they may want that is outside of industry standards, and they may or may not have the leverage that will allow that to be something that will probably be given. And I've found that it's very important that a lot of times, if they're in a position of low leverage, they almost have to accept what they get. And so we're just trying to make sure that it's not for a very long time, or it's not a horrible deal. But what's most important is that they know what they're signing. A lot of people complain later on because I didn't realize that I wasn't going to get a percentage of that, or I didn't realize that I was going to have to, do this for this amount of time, or have this type of requirement on myself. So I always felt it was my duty to make sure they knew every single thing that was in the contract and completely understood what their requirements are, what the other person was required to do, what the other person is not required to do, and where that fell as far as industry standards.
And then on my end, I represent some company. Well, I guess all of my clients, whether they're solo artists or I still set them up as businesses. But as far as representing entities that are management companies or production companies, I do represent several of those. But my clientele is really heavy on the artist, producer, songwriter, the individual end. So when I get deals, there's kind of different phases, that I have. I'm the lawyer, I don't just get the deal and look over it and say, here, sign it. I really love for my clients to be educated on the business of their craft and, and what they're signing. And that alone, being interested in them being informed and educated, that alone, just as a lawyer, there's so much value in that, because you're not going to get a lot of lawyers who say, okay, this is what you're signing, this is why you should sign it or not sign it, do you understand this? And of course, as the clients become more successful and a bit more busy, getting them just to kind of sit still and process all of that, it's a bit more difficult. But I always tell people, I have no interest in being part of your VH1 story. 5 years from now, when things are going wrong, you will never be able to say, Evita didn't explain this to me. Like, this is not going to happen.
We'll never be able to say it truthfully.
It will not. Listen, we'll not be able to say it
truthfully. People say a lot of stuff, but
oh my goodness. And so with contracts, because I have no interest in just kind of being a paper pusher, I really like to get creative with deals. There's a consulting piece. I'm going to tell my client what it is. I'm not just going to talk about it within the scope of what's here and what's now, but what does this contract mean for you 6 months, 12 months, 6 years from now? What does it mean with respect to your brand, to your vision, to the album you're about to release, who you stand for as a person? All these kinds of things, which makes my job really exciting because I can have that kind of conversation. It's just contracts. Well, no, it's a whole discussion about all things that are an extension of you and how it affects you now and how it affects you later. So I really thoroughly enjoy that when it comes to contracts. So what kinds of contracts are you looking
at? Every type imaginable. I've worked with every type of contract and every facet of entertainment.
So for your music clients, just so that students know what kind of contracts we're working on. Just give us some
okay. So there's the management, and then them signing to whichever label or production company they're signing to. Split sheets when they're in the studio creating the music. Any licensing agreements will require their approval, even though it's probably going to go through the label. Endorsement deals would be with the either the management company or the client, but the client's going to have to approve it if they're artists. And like I said, I'll work very heavily on the company side. So all of the documents revolved around establishing the entity, hiring other service providers, whether it's an independent contractor agreement or if they're at the level where they can actually have employment agreements. So basically, a small business, there's a lot of similarity to just any business at all when you're dealing with the actual company, because they have to function just like any other business would have to function. So trademarks and copyrights, other agreements, or I guess they're registrations and applications, but they're also sometimes jointly owned. So then there's sometimes agreements as far as assigning the rights to those intellectual properties.
So what you pointed out is that from a business principles absolutely apply to what it is that we do, especially if you're setting up your clients as businesses, which we usually do for all kinds of tax liability reasons. So just kind of general things there. Two people or two entities want to come together, maybe a joint venture situation, then creating a company together, all the stuff that comes along with that. For me, representing the talent, we're going to be doing recording deals, producer agreements, music publishing agreements, endorsements, merchandise, appearances, strategic alliances. My clients, I mean, dealing with all of the major beverage brands, whether it's, your sodas or your pops, depending on where you're from, to the alcohol, to all kinds of shoes, sneakers, hats. I mean, all kinds of stuff. Oh, we need you to perform here. We need you to appear here. I had every client, I think 4 or 5 clients performed at South by Southwest. One client in particular, he had 7 shows. Usually his booking agent will handle those shows, but two of the kind of sponsors, they sent over agreements that were very broad and right. So those agreements were sent to me. The booking agent can, authorize anything solely with respect to the performance, but when it comes to, we want to take footage, audio, audio visual, we want to, put it in a package on our website, we want to distribute it here, blah, blah, I have to take a look at all of those things. When it comes to some contracts, I am communicating with business manager on, okay, what's the plan? Where does this contract fit within the plan that we have for this particular artist? Talking to the business manager, okay, this deal is for $100,000. It might be December. Do we wait until January until we get paid for this, or do we need to break it down? What are the accounts looking like? If you have clients that have multiple companies, making sure that if it's for services as talent, it's coming through that particular company. If it's for merchandise and apparel, it's coming through this one. If it's another entity where the client is doing a joint venture, so there's all kinds of like really creative and fun things that you do, and each client is going to look different. And to your point earlier about kind of having leverage to shape the agreements, this is where I always tell students, a deal is not just a deal. A deal exists within the context. So I may get the same recording agreement for 2 different clients. Let's say I get a recording agreement for client A, who has potential, but not a lot of results. Talent, potential, but hasn't really gone out and done the work. And maybe this person is a hip hop artist. Let's say I have client number 2, I get the same recording deal. This person has been planting seeds, touring to to his own ability for 2 years, has a following, has released some projects, so it's more than potential. I'm going to be negotiating 2 completely different deals. Same offer, 2 completely different deals, and that's where the leverage and the value comes in. If it's a recording deal, and I have a client that's a hip hop artist, and they get the deal and they haven't really done much. It's just a lot of potential. What my recommendation is probably going to be is that you go out 6 months to a year and you do the work, because the value that you're getting now is based off of your potential. And when you're dealing with record labels, it's a corporation. They've already run the numbers, and the offer that you're getting, far, it's low. It doesn't meet your actual value, but you've got to go out there and you got to work. So we're going to take some time, and we're probably going to turn that deal down. For the other client that has a little bit more leverage, you can get very creative with the conversations. The client may be in a position to say, we don't want to take this deal now, or maybe we want to be independent. Maybe we want to be major. That's a whole nother thing. So I say all that to say, it's not just contracts. It's a discussion within a context, and the more you know about your client, The more you know about your client's needs, your client's brand, the more you know about just the music space and how things are ebbing and flowing, the better off you'll be able to really create the best deal for your clients. So what is the role of a music lawyer when it comes to intellectual property?
The consultation aspect of explaining to them, probably from the beginning of my career, what I've had to repeat over and over to people, a lot of people don't get the concept of you own the intellectual property already, and that the registration process just gives you further rights. And so I constantly give people, well, I want to make sure I own it, and then the opposite is people think because you registered that prevents people from
stealing it.
And it doesn't. So, being able to explain to them and educate them on what intellectual property is and what the registration process is about is the first step. And then actually filling out the paperwork, getting from them what you need. What a lot of people feel is when they hire somebody, whether it's a lawyer, accountant, or professional service, that, once they hire, that's all they have to do. They have all the information. So then it's working with them to get the right information and to package that, then sending it off. You're following up, making sure a lot of these registration processes are very long, especially like trademark. I think they recently streamlined it, but it can take as much as a year or more. And so you've got to kind of keep it on your calendar, follow up, any notices that are sent in that you have to respond to. You have to be on your due diligence to make sure that gets done. And then from there, advising them of how to maintain it. With a lot of the registrations, it's not just registering it, but if someone does infringe on it, they're obligated to I forgot the word, but basically defend it. You have to defend it in order to keep it. And so just kind of assisting that with that whole process as well. If somebody does infringe, okay, what are their rights? What do we do next? And
yeah, so that's more so on the it's kind of the process and the protection and the registrations on a federal level. Last night when I was at Emory, a student asked me, so what do you do with intellectual property? Are you a trademark attorney? Are you a copyright attorney? And I don't consider myself as such, but what I do consider myself is I manage intellectual property in the sense that at the core of every recording agreement, there's an exchange that surrounds copyrights for the most part. At the core of every sort of endorsement deal, at the center of that is the use of a trademark and personality rights. So property is at the center of really every deal that I do, minus a couple here and there, the right to use my client's name and likeness, with respect to a certain product that's coming out. Or I may actually get a deal that deals with all of it. Let's see, I'm working on something now where it's a deal with a beverage brand, and they are engaging my client to create exclusive content for their music initiatives. So that's copyright. Who owns the copyright? What's the exchange? Does my client actually own it? Are you licensing it in perpetuity? Can you use it for 6 months? What's the dollar figure for that? Who's going to cover the cost? And then so you've got the music and the copyrights and all the terms with that. And now they want to use my client's name, my client's trademarks to be able to promote the music, to be able to put it on their as part of their campaign on their website. So we've got to deal with that. What are the parameters on that? Everything has to be, approved use. Any sort of press releases, any sort of marketing that uses my client's name, any sort of affiliated trademarks, we have to pre-approve. You may be able to use the song in perpetuity on your network. Maybe you've got relationships with Spotify, so you can use that forever, but you can't use the trademark name and likeness beyond 12 months. So you're kind of dealing with that. So you've got all these moving parts, but at the center of it is, hey, we want to engage you to create content. And this deal is going to be centered around what the terms are of that, how much money it's going to be, what your remaining rights are, how the use is going to be. So that's at the center of every deal is the property. Absent intellectual property, we don't have all of these deals. A record label has to give you a recording contract in order to get from you the music, the copyright and the music, which is naturally yours. I mean, it's a 70-page agreement, but that's the essence of it. It's like, you're going to create property and we need that from you. And we're going to pay you X amount of dollars, and we're going to fund this project for X amount of dollars. We own you forever, And so there's all these things to it, but at the core of it, it certainly is property. So when I say music lawyer, know that the intellectual property piece is absolutely there, but it's more from a management standpoint, and shaping all the deals around it from my end. So what would you say is the role of a music lawyer from your experience with the brand that your clients have?
Again, consultation and being able to, so as a music lawyer, unless you're going to be highly specialized in like she said, copyright or patent, and that's all you do, or litigation, that's all you do, then you have to kind of have a natural ability as well as desire to be involved in shaping an artist's career. You're very integral to that being done. And the agreements that you're going to be putting together or reviewing and negotiating are the words that go along with the action that has to be done for that artist's career. So the branding is extremely important. I have two types of clients. So there are clients where they hire me just to do one thing. I do that one thing. And that's all. And then there are clients where I represent them for their career. And so it's talking to them about what their desires are, what they want their brand to be, and that dictates what type of agreements we get into and what is in those agreements based on what that client's brand is and what they want to do. I try to always maintain the balance of it's their career and their choice. But at the same time, being as helpful as I can based on my own passion, my own experience and gifts as far as helping them kind of shape that and letting them know, okay, if you want your brand to be this type of brand, there are certain deals that are probably going to be off the table. And is that okay with you? And for me, what I've seen throughout life is the closer the brand is to how they actually are, the better it is for everybody. To have a client where their image is one thing, but their style and personality and lifestyle is something else is like a train wreck waiting to happen, especially in this society where nothing is sacred. Like nothing that you do anywhere doesn't stand the chance of being recorded or talked about. So I always try to push them to get as close to how they are and mirror that with their brand. And that's more of a paternalistic interaction with them. But that I feel like that's very important based on what I've seen up to this point. But for the most part, it's letting them kind of explain to me what they want to do and making sure that the agreements and the moves that are made from that day forward match that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And then for me, when it comes to the client's brand, like I know every client that I have, I know their music. I know their story, their personal needs, wants, desires, what they're afraid of. I know all of these things about them. So in an example that I can give you, so, we got a kind of a sneaker deal. It wasn't a sneaker deal. It was with a sneaker company, strategically aligned. And it's like, okay, well, they want to give us $20,000, but then you've got all of these commitments that you've got to do for the next year. And so my question to my client is, do you even wear these sneakers? Do you even wear it? Because of course, in the sneaker deal, it's like, we need you to do all this stuff. We're gonna pay you $20,000, and you cannot wear any competitor, which is any shoe known to man. And I can look on your Instagram. I was like, well, you had on Nikes yesterday, and you were shouting out Nike, and you were doing this, and like you really love Nikes, and it's like you realize you take this deal, you can't wear Nike, in public places or be, when you're on stage, it's $20,000. Could you use $20,000? Hey, we like $20,000, but you got to pay me, your business manager, your bills, this person, that person. When it comes down to, maybe you're around $10,000 for a year-long commitment exclusivity, then you're about to come out with an album that's just going to set you up for other opportunities, maybe with Nike, who you actually like. Let's not do this deal. Okay. I mean, so it's having that kind of knowledge about your client, about the deals, and understanding the impact of it from a brand standpoint. I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. So we're lawyers, but we're cool. You know, we do fun stuff, and we have really fun and creative conversations. And I think they're fun and creative because we actually love this. You know, we love to do it. So I want to open up the floor for any questions that you all may have. Yes,
I have a question. Both of you guys mentioned that you guys are entrepreneurs. So I imagine, you guys are always having ideas of what you like to do, where you like to go. And that's kind of my problem / blessing.
Yeah.
So my question is, how do you kind of focus or create like a timeline for yourself, so you don't get distracted, so you don't mess up your current practice by chasing something that might not be ready to happen right now. So how do you kind of get in that mind frame and just follow the steps?
For me, and you're right, because I am an entrepreneur. I consider myself creative, and I'm a Gemini, which is I have like 10 personalities that want 10 different things, right? It's a thing. It's like a fight with myself. What I've learned is that life changes over time. So what you're interested in and what you want over time, it grows and it expands. So for me, fresh out of law school, I wanted to be a music lawyer. I wanted to do contracts. I wanted to be involved. But as I began to do that, over the years, now it's like, okay, I'm ready to expand into something else. What does that look like? What does that mean? Does that mean me, teaching at a law school or music business program? Does it mean me writing a book, developing out a future music attorneys program, which all are still an extension of what it is that I do. But I think that's natural just to being a human being and being a person with different interests and different gifts and talents. But you're right. How do you do those things without, abandoning or sacrificing the quality and what it is that you do? And that's just something that you learn, along the way, as long as you're mindful of it. We do have a responsibility to our clients. And especially with the relationship that I built with my clients, like the whole point of working with me is that I am there. Whatever you need, I got it. We're gonna figure this out. I'm gonna hold your hand and we're gonna conquer the world together. Like I have to be that in addition to getting the work done. So it's not an easy thing to juggle and to do, but naturally, I think you owe it to yourself as a person outside of being a lawyer and your clients to evolve in all these other places where you can have an impact. So it's difficult. I've been writing a book for the last 5 years. It was supposed to come out 5 years ago, but it's supposed to come out now. All these things that I've been learning and planting the seeds. So it's okay to plant seeds earlier on and just kind of revisit it, develop it out, study it a little bit more, and things unfold how they should. But there's nothing wrong with that.
I'd say mentally realizing that any idea that you see the end results of that are in any way similar to what you want to do, doing research to see how long it took them to do that and how many different phases they went through, so that you feel comfortable knowing that it takes a long time, and at each stage doing small steps is going to be how you get there. So if you have that in mind, that it takes small steps over time, then it is possible to do a lot of things at one time, because one thing could be something nobody even knows about. You spend an hour a week just jotting down your notes and kind of developing it out, and then it grows from there. Something else may be something where you, within 6 months, kind of let everybody know what you're doing, and that's a different aspect of what you are involved in. So each, and letting life and your opportunities dictate what comes where. So if I come up with an idea and I think it's a great idea, I start by writing it down. I flesh out all the different things I would have to do, make a to-do list, and then start working on the to-do list. If I need a particular person and I either can't find someone that expertise, or I don't have the money at that time, then making a plan. Okay, I need somebody with this particular skill set, and just, going back to it every so often and putting out feelers. And then when that person comes, that was the perfect time for that to have been done, and not feeling stressed that I didn't do it all in 1 week or 1 month or 1 year. As well as realizing a lot of things, all things have to be done with a team. And so doing your part is the best way to help the team. And so not being so bogged down on the final results, but what do you have to do and what do you have to get accomplished and get done, also kind of grounds me to not get bogged down on I want the end result right now.
I have a question. How you doing? My name is John Rose.
Hi,
To
John.
introduce myself. I'm going to try to structure my question so you can understand where I'm coming from.
Okay.
Okay, so fortunately, I was able to meet, when I moved out here, I was able to meet Mike Will. And I work currently for Air Drummers. That's how I was introduced to Vinny and Yawanda. And every day I get the opportunity to meet different artists, photographers, different entertainers, and then let me know if my understanding is correct. I realized that just knowing all these people isn't truly enough, because nothing guarantees that when I finish law school, I'm going to be these guys' lawyers. Or if they're going to fire, 2-9's not going to fire Yawanda for me, even though I work as a legal assistant for them. So I said, okay, let me create a way where I can build more of a relationship with these entertainers and these up-and-coming artists and try to get some things in writing. So I started my own management consulting firm, and I started helping them with branding and just bringing a sense of professionalism to what it is that they do. My trouble now is that with handling these split sheets and invoices and just little stuff like emails for them, whether it be photographers, whoever it is staying the straight line and not stepping over into actually giving legal advice, because we're not allowed to do that as law students. So I'll have one of my clients come to me. I work with like Cam Kerr, have him come to me like, okay, I need you to help me set up this LLC. I was like, okay, yeah, and I manage Cam now. So it's like, he said, I need you to help me set up this LLC. It's like, okay, I can do that, but ethically I really can't do that. So it's like, how do you build these connections and make sure that you keep them where they actually feel that you're doing work for me and not just going to someone else and still walking the straight path where it's like, okay, I'm not going to get kicked out of law school.
Right. Well, I mean, there's a couple of things that I'll say to that, and thank you for structuring your question.
Yeah.
So I want you to know that my response is, I say it with love. Assume right now that you don't know anything, because you don't.
Yeah,
as far as being a lawyer. So I mean, so that should keep you. I was like, okay, I don't know everything, but what you can do, because it seems like you're facilitating a lot of, things that concern a career. So that's good. You can facilitate. You may be in a position where you're facilitating some sort of relationship between your client and a lawyer. You're still involved in that process, so it's not like you're handing it off, and you may feel, troubled by that. It's like, hey, I'm a law student. I'm going to help you facilitate different areas of your career, but lucky for you, I have a network of lawyers that I know, so let me connect you with such and such, and I'm going to oversee that process, and you can, be the person that communicates with the lawyer. The lawyer is going to need to be in touch with that, the client directly, throughout the kind of the process of that relationship. But you can still be in that process and facilitate that. So you're known as the facilitator, and then eventually you'll be the lawyer. And you still have the relationship with them. So, definitely stay out of kind of the legal space, but know that you have relationships with lawyers that you can plug people into and still oversee or be involved in facilitating all of that from a management standpoint. That's my recommendation.
So I have a bit of a different recommendation just because I had a different path. So I was pretty much representing people in law school, but the way I was able to do it was under the supervision of an attorney. So if you are under the supervision of an attorney and you work out an agreement with the attorney, then you can do everything that attorney allows you to do, which is interacting with the client, doing the agreements, putting the forms together. Any attorney that is, worth having a relationship with, they're going to make sure it's done right. And so the final review of everything, they're going to make sure. But depending on your relationship with that particular attorney, you could have a lot of leeway. Like I was pretty much running a law practice through the clinical while I was in law school. And it grew to that point. So of course, my first year or the first time doing it, I was doing less than I was eventually. But I didn't even realize till I started working for Jonathan that I was doing everything that an attorney did at the clinical. So that would be how you could do it.
And it seems, from what Michelle is saying, is that actually puts you in a position to get experience as well under supervision. So, that certainly may be the way if you can find a lawyer, that's willing to do that. So you've got options. So there's nothing that you should be fearing. It's just a matter of how you're positioning yourself and continuing to build relationships, with your clients.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yes. My question is, what mistakes did you all make early on in starting your own practice that someone like us could prevent?
Good question.
By learning from your experience.
Oh my God. Wow. And I talked about this a little bit earlier. I didn't know anything. I had a practice, which means I set up a company. I had a degree, which I got that. That was the big prize. It cost a lot of money. But it's there. So I had kind of some tools, but I had no idea what I was doing. Like none. So there was a lot of trial and error. I don't really know what the mistakes were. I just know that it's kind of a blur. I was a little all over the place and constantly in search for answers, and then something sticks, and it's years later and you're like, I'm good, somewhat still learning. So what I would recommend is, or what I would want you to understand is that how I started, there were several different capacities that were going on. I was a lawyer, I was a person within music, I was an entrepreneur, which I think is different from a business owner, entrepreneur and a business owner. All of these things I had no experience in at all. My parents are entrepreneurs and business owners. So I understood working until you were just completely tapped out, to live well and get things done, and you're fueled by passion. I saw that my whole life. What I didn't see was how to manage finances, how to fund whatever it is that you're doing, how to run a business, answer the phones, and do. I had no concept of that. I'm still working on that. So as far as being an entrepreneur, I had the spirit. I had the entrepreneurial spirit, even though someone told me I didn't have it, which was interesting. It's okay. Fuel to my fire. I had the entrepreneurial spirit, meaning that I am willing to go out and find the way or create the way. I'm committed to that. That's what an entrepreneur is, where the risks don't matter. You're going to take the risk and you're going to bet on yourself. If anything I had, I'm willing to bet on myself. Like that's what being an entrepreneur is. Bet on yourself. You don't have to have the answers. Just bet on yourself and know that you're going to come on the other side. But running a business, what? So there are tools and resources available to you, whether they're online, whether they're business organizations. There are tools within being a business owner that you're not going to get it in law school. You have to go out and become a part of that community or get those resources and be a student of that. And you're going to perfect it as time goes and you own a business. You're not going to know it all right away, but there are some fundamental starting tools that you can get in place that you can read about, that you can learn from to get you started there. Being a person within music. I loved music. I studied it. I kind of knew it. But now I was trying to get into the community. I don't like to say the music industry. The industry is just kind of this thing. I don't really think I'm a part of it. But I'm in the music space, in the music community. So for me, what my challenge was is how do I establish my voice within the music space? What is my perspective? What is my angle? What is my voice? Who am I in this space? Because everybody's a music lawyer, everybody's a rapper, everybody's a producer, a writer, a manager, A&R, independent A&R, everybody. So I had to find out what is my voice in this space. So that's entrepreneur, business owner, a voice in music, and being a lawyer. being a lawyer, you will have no idea how to be a lawyer when you graduate. I don't care where you go. Start your own practice, go work for someone. You're like, okay, I went to law school. I have no idea what's happening right now. But you have this amazing ability to think a certain way and to find answers that I attribute to going to law school. Somebody put something in front of me, if I've never seen it before, I trust that I have the skill set because of my training to get it figured out. I mean, that's just been my experience. So you talk to other lawyers, and you'll find that the experiences are far and wide. I am so far on the left of just being a lawyer. I'm way, way far left. So I always encourage people to talk to me, of course, because I think I'm a beacon of hope. But then talk to other people as well who, didn't start their own practice right away, but maybe eventually got there, or who went into a large firm and decided to go to a small firm, or started with a small firm, went to a large firm, or started in one practice and went to another. Talk to as many people as you can, and you take little nuggets of information, and you apply it, and you kind of build your own blueprint from that. I didn't do that. But I recommend that you talk to other people and do not get discouraged by information that doesn't support you. You just say, okay, that's your perspective. I can't really use anything from that, and you move forward. So I've got tons of recommendations because there's a ton of stuff I did not do that you should do.
For me, the biggest thing would be do a business plan if you know you eventually want to have your own company, even if you don't feel comfortable having it from the time you graduate. That's probably the biggest thing that I wish I would have done, because I knew I eventually wanted to have my own firm. I didn't think I would be able to do it straight out. And like, I will sing its praises till the day I die. The legal clinic I went to, I was fully prepared to be a lawyer on levels that I didn't even realize, like I said, until I got the clinical until I got the internship with Jonathan and then started working on my own. So that wasn't as big of an issue to me. Of course, there are things with any profession that I look back on, I would have done better. I do it better now, but there's no like major mistakes I made in that area. I would say the biggest thing was I didn't just go ahead and do a business plan. I think it would have been a lot smoother transition, and things would have been more organized, because the issue you get into with being a business owner is a lot of times you take better care of your client's business than you do your own. You let things go by and, you'll get to it. And your client stuff is, impeccable. And so having kind of a whole overall plan, I probably would have been able to bring in assistance at a much earlier time frame if that's the angle I had gone. The other thing is being okay with having a life. It took me to be in a very bad situation where I partnered with somebody and didn't even realize till that partnership was no longer working how like overworked I was. And so at a much earlier point in my career, I would have established like it's okay to have a weekend where you don't do any work. Like it's okay to tell clients you talk to them between these hours. Of course, you'll have certain situations and certain clients where you'll go outside of that, but it shouldn't be every client has access to you 24/7. Someone you just met and they can call you on the weekend all kind of hours. Like when you love what you do, that's hard. And sometimes you feel like, that's a part of you working hard and being a go-getter, but it's much better to have a happy, healthy, long life where you're not stressed out over something that, people will call you because they met somebody in the club that night and they want to do a deal in the morning. You'll stress yourself over getting stuff done for that, and then they'll fall out, the next day, or, it's all kind of stuff that you recognize later on that I could have just like, now there's no urgency. Like everything takes forever, but it's going to be done good. It's going to be done right. And I shouldn't say forever in their world, because it still gets done like lightning fast compared to like a major firm. But, just being comfortable with that I can have a life, like I can enjoy myself. I can go to the movies and not have to be answering emails and stuff like that. Like I can turn off my work life, and that doesn't make me a bad entrepreneur, or it doesn't mean I'm not passionate. It means you care about your health and being around for much longer to do what it is that you love. So those are the two biggest things. If you know you want to have your own company, go ahead and do a business plan while you're in school. It's a lot easier to do it than when you're out there, you know, having to hunt to survive. And also being okay with having business hours, even from, you know, the very beginning of your career.
And I'm really happy that you brought up business plans. My experience with it, well, I believe in having a plan. I don't think that there are strict rules or should be strict rules about how that plan looks or how it's structured. I had actually the gentleman who told me I didn't have the entrepreneurial spirit. He's the person who helped me with my business plan. He was a friend of the family. I still love him, but that was an issue. And he'd seen me grow up. So I think he was more concerned for me than anything. It's like, you know, you move back in with your parents, and apparently you got all this education and this debt, and you're gonna go be in the music industry, and you don't really seem to have any answers. You know, maybe you should, you know, think about things differently. And then he came to know the true me, and I was just like, listen. So what he did was he gave me a template for a business plan. I struggled so hard with it. It was too much structure for me, and it asked too many questions that I didn't have answers for. Didn't even at that time. You know, I remember how it started off at the top was it said something about how much time you should devote to your personal life, your health, your business, and we were already not on the same page. And I said, listen, that formula doesn't work for me right now. I don't even know how it's possible. And then listing out all these things that you want to accomplish, and on there, you know, item number 5, I had Oprah Winfrey. Hell, I didn't know how I was getting there, why I was going to be there, but it was there. And he had too many questions about why it was there. It's there. You know, and it's still there for me. I will be there, and everybody should tune in. And so I had a vision. I had a very broad, clear, like in color vision, and it's so far down the road. But what the business plan does is how will you get there? And that was so overwhelming for me. So I say all that to say a plan is important. But if it starts off within 6 months, just some bullet points that you need to come back to 3 months from now and just erase it and put something else in, that's fine. But you got to have some sort of plan, because you got to have somewhere to direct your energies. Otherwise, you're just blowing in the wind, and there may be lots of movement, but no progress. And that's why you want to have a plan. But if you find yourself getting lost in the details of a business plan, it's okay to just take pause, because you don't want it to discourage. I found a little discouragement. And I still have a plan. And I actually go back and I said, you know what? I did that. I moved out of my parents' house. I did that. And next is Oprah. You know, so there's power in a plan. And there's so many tools available to you to be able to build a business plan as a student. As I said earlier, Google is your friend. You can go to the bookstore. I mean, there's tons and tons and tons of things available to you now. You don't really have any excuses, but know how you plan that out and what it looks like doesn't have to be rigid. Just find some things to put your energy into and develop that out over time.
And I had a question in regards to attorneys with brands and intellectual property. And I'm Cameron, by the way. So I had heard like last month, I guess, Kevin Hart in promotion, and this is more entertainment, attorney and music, Kevin Hart in promotion of a movie, you know, he was like, I'm not going to use my Twitter because that's my brand. That's, unless you pay me, I'm not going to do it. And if you are his attorney, are you battling it out with his manager saying this is a bad move, this is a bad move for the brand? Or are you saying, if you're in the studio, you know, he should have put this in a contract that he had to mandatory to promote a certain number of months? And I guess, can that cross over to music, where now with technology, is it better to go in aggressive and say, like, no, you have to start using your social media towards your product or our brand? Or do you think that's too aggressive and just kind of wait till the negotiations come in before you introduce a clause like that into your deal? Because I don't know, like, is it?
Well, from what I understand that situation to be what Kevin Hart said, I'm not doing this deal unless you pay me for the use of my social media. I am all for that. Because here's the thing, when it comes to ultimately what the movie company is trying to do is connect to an audience. Get people to show up. Anything that you sell, an album, a concert, a movie, you're trying to find ways to directly connect with people to get their attention. And the less filters that you have to go through, the better. So Kevin Hart's saying, look, I have, based off of my brand and what I do every single day, I have a fan base of X amount of millions of people. That is huge. That's what you put all these flyers and billboards, and it's to get the attention of people maybe when they're driving down the street. So you have 1 million or however many million people tuned into directly to what you have to say every day, and they engage it, they like it, they repeat it, they retweet it, they repost it. That is massive. And his fan base is huge on social media. Oh, you're paying, like that's a whole separate clause, whole separate fee. You want me to show up in the movie? Money. You want me to show up to the promotion? Money. Unless I, want to promote it, for free, take care of all the expenses. You want to use my social media? Money. And what I can tell you, every deal that I do now, I probably say for the last 3 years that I do, that involves my clients strategically aligning with a brand, whether it is a apparel line, whether it's a beverage line, that language is already in there. My client is obligated to tweet, put on social media, whatever, talk about it. And so then we get into how many tweets. My client has to pre-approve any tweets that the brand does, and the brand wants to pre-approve any tweets or whatever that my client does. It may be that my client's doing a photo shoot, so they want to, have my client put out several images of the behind the scenes. My client may also do photo shoot of a performance. They want stuff from the performance, then they want the behind the scenes after the performance. They want the client just wearing it. There's all these obligations. That is the value now for these brands. Or if I'm pitching someone for a brand, and I don't do that a lot, it's here's my client, here's the project that's coming out, here's the Twitter, here's the Instagram, here's this, because it says, here's the audience that you get to directly tap into, which is why you want to be in business with my client. And this is what you pay for. This is what you pay for. So, it's like social media is like this whole new dynamic, but it's direct access, like never before. And that's the whole point of marketing and promoting. So if you have someone who has this huge fan base, but you don't want to pay the value for that, then there's no deal. There's no deal. So obviously I thought about that.
From the perspective of mostly representing the company, that will be something that was put in to begin with, and that whatever value that person attribute to that, we would have reached that agreement from the onset. From there, it would just be like if I'm representing someone who didn't have that in the agreement and they later want the client to do that, or thought that the artist was going to do that on their own and they're not wanting to, then it would probably be trying to get them to all sit down. One, for my client to realize how important is that to you. If this person is kind of drawing a line in the sand, is this something that you want to, what we do is managing relationships. So that even though I do a bit of litigation, I don't enjoy it, but I have that experience. I much prefer the deal making side because it allows you to be creative and to try to work together towards a common goal. And there are times where it's contentious to get to that point, but that is supposed to be the goal, and kind of helping my clients realize, is this something that is worth kind of agitating this artist? And if it is for some real concrete reason, then finding a way to let the client and their representatives know this is the reason. We feel like without these numbers, we're not going to be able to meet certain things. They probably have back end money. So it would then be trying to come up with a strategy where we convince the person and maybe come up with something very basic that they have to do, and letting that client know in the future, if this is so integral to you being able to promote the movie, then it needs to be in from the very beginning.
Any other questions?
As music attorneys, how did y'all feel about the holding in the blurred lines, Pharrell, Marvin Gaye estate case?
Oh my goodness. I don't agree with the outcome. I think from a practical standpoint, it's not really a finding that I really know how to apply or advise my clients of. You know, it's like, well, you have a case which is very unique, in the sense that the jury found that there was infringement based off a particular field. You know, but my position is if you go back to the 70s, all music in the 70s had a feel. All music in the 80s had a feel. The 90s a feel. I don't really know what 2000s feel like. Still trying to figure that out. But you know, there feels because there are consistent elements throughout the music. You've got disco, you've got 80s R&B. You know, what about every song that Quincy Jones ever produced, right? I mean, it's gonna there's a common thread. You know, every song that Pharrell or the Neptunes or Tim, there's a common thread there. Maybe you don't necessarily have the argument because it's the same party creating the songs, but feel, you call things R&B because it feels a certain way. It's presented in various forms, but there's a common element. You call something pop because it feels a certain way, or country because it feels a certain way. So I think that was a very problematic finding. And to my understanding and to my knowledge of what copyright infringement is, it's just not supported by the law. So I'm just interested in how they came to that conclusion. You know, with it, and what I think also the danger is that copyright in and of itself is very complex. So being able to present the facts to 12 people that don't deal with copyright law on a daily basis, but who encounter music on a daily basis that makes them feel a certain way, it's such a huge risk. Because when you hear the records, absolutely they feel the same. They do. You can't, there's no way getting around that. But when it comes to copyright law and infringement, it just doesn't meet that threshold of infringement. And from a policy standpoint, you know, copyright law, I mean, it's founded in our Constitution. It's there to protect people that create, but it's also there to invite people to, you know, create as a basis. So, you know, I think from a policy standpoint, it restricts. But I don't even know that it's I don't know how they came to that conclusion from a legal basis and how copyright infringement is defined, or even copyright. You know, so it's a whole thing. I don't think it was the best decision. I don't know if they're gonna appeal it. I feel like they should. Just for the sake of
somebody would come in and pay them to appeal it.
No, I was like, who do I need to call to join this, you know, defense team? And I already told you how about litigation, just don't like it. But it's just I think just how it was handled was, I don't know, it's insane. And I think a lot of people had issue with the fact that I think it was Pharrell and then Robin Thicke, how their counsel had filed the lawsuit first, saying, well, you guys shouldn't have filed the lawsuit first to prevent them from coming after you because you would have opened up this door. But based off of my experience and what I imagined happened was that they got all these phone calls and letters saying, we're going to sue, we're going to sue, we're going to sue. And so most lawyers, and I've even done it in some situations where you get these threats that have no basis in your opinion, to make it go away and to keep, you know, legal costs, you know, down to a minimum and just shut the whole thing up, is you file that lawsuit. It's a declaratory. You filed it and you go to a judge and say, listen, we believe that there is a real threat that this person is going to sue. based off of the facts and our position, we want the court to rule that they have no basis to move forward with a lawsuit down the road. I thought that was actually a smart move in assuming that they'd probably gotten so much hell up to that point that they just wanted to dead it. I would have been completely wrong. Just like these lawyers where they say, listen, there's no real threat here. Let's just do this. Let's just, get rid of it. And, there's nothing there. I would have said that to my clients.
Plus, it's the tactic of a lot of people will wait to file the lawsuit to the very limits of the statute of limitations so they can earn the most money. And so that's also a defense tactic to go ahead and kind of set what it is now, so you're not just inevitably waiting for this lawsuit to come any day now. And coming to be able to get into agreements, endorsement deals, like who wants to touch it if they think eventually, they may be brought into a lawsuit for having it as their slogan, So, but for me, kind of the same thing. I don't think it's going to stand appeal. It'll probably be something that goes all the way to the Supreme Court if it's not reversed. And I think it's going to be one of those groundbreaking decisions at the end of the day. That's probably going to be 10, 20 years from now, which is why I don't like litigation. It's forever. I can imagine working on one case for like 10 years, but that's like normal. But some people love it. Everybody's got their own interests. I think it's problematic for all the reasons that Evita said, and just to state it in a different way. There are only so many notes, and we have lived for how long, and we're going to live for how long, so you can't have it so broad that once somebody comes up with something like forever and eternity, with them being able to renew copyrights, it makes it very difficult to create new music if the standard is a field.
Yeah.
And that's hard to then.
How do you do that?
Yeah, describe, and then if 12 people feel one way, it's very difficult. I can see how they came up with it because it's a gut kind of emotional thing when you hear the songs. And like Evita said, the people that are on the jury are regular, people. They're not. This is not their profession. To know that you can have something like people go for a field. They'll get an artist and say, okay, we want this artist to give people an 80s feel of how they felt in the 80s. Like that's something you specifically target to do in the industry. And I think you kind of have to in order to, of course, they've got to do it in a new, fresh way. But the fact that there's only certain amounts of feels that can be created with the number of notes that exist. So I definitely don't think it's going to stand appeal because it almost can't. Then there are lawsuits. It's just it just opens the barn door. So I definitely think it was a mistake that they'll eventually correct, even if it's a long time from now.
We're gonna close up. Are there any final questions? All right. Thank